everyone, and welcome back to another roundup, and today it's kind of a spicy one. So, Halo Infinite, right? It has had its delay, and we now have, well, new allegations, including things that say the Halo TV show was a distraction to higher-ups at the studio, and also serious concerns over communication issues and overzealous outsourcing, so that seems a bit rough. Also, 505 Games have offered a highly unconvincing explanation over basically why the Control Ultimate Edition is a thing, and that's kind of there to be a thing that you purchase so that you get an next-gen upgrade. It's a bit sketchy. Also, Epic have struck back again, trying to get another marketing win on Apple in their ongoing battle. There's then also that SEGA apparently love PC now, which is kind of cool. The Battletoads situation, which is also a bit odd, and a few other things as well. So, that's what's up with the news today. Of course, hit that sub button to get future updates. Most of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed, so hit that button. Of course, there were 2 videos up yesterday, just in case you missed one. Okay, with that said, let's get into the Halo Infinite situation. And it's a bit sad, really, as a Halo fan, I'll definitely say that. So, Therot.com, who are, when it comes to Microsoft things, very much on the money, they this week released an article investigating the game's turbulent development. Now, it begins by outlining that Halo Infinite was always going to be a difficult game to make, because it was supposed to essentially overhaul and reboot Halo. The 343 were building a new engine from scratch. It was for an unannounced console where, specs could have been shifting, and of course there was a pandemic as well, and those things all boiled over in the lackluster reveal that we all saw. But Therot argues that Halo's issue started long before July, and it calls attention to a significant portion of the game being outsourced. Now, this certainly is quite interesting. Outsourcing is normal in games these days. Games like The Last of Us Part 2, I think that's a game where the production design is something you couldn't really fault. A lot of outsourcing happened there. It is totally a normal thing to outsource stuff. But I think what's different here is that Therot's sources are suggesting the 343 were outsourcing, quote, at a ratio higher than a typical studio. Now, this outsourcing ended up, they say, causing great difficulties when it came to cross-studio collaboration, and ended up just, wires crossed, things being maybe slower than they were supposed to be. Certainly, I will say, when you look at the game, some things don't look super cohesive. It does look a little bit messy. I don't know if that's specifically down to outsourcing, but yes, basically, the more you outsource, the more you increase your operational complexity. If a game project is running in a very, well-managed way, and it's a real surefire bet, outsourcing, I think, makes a lot of sense and is great. But I think when you're in a situation like this, when a game is a bit more experimental in its technology and its ambition, then outsourcing is probably more risky, and certainly outsourcing to a higher ratio than most studios would seem to be extra risky. So there's that. Now, on the topic of outsourcing, they also call attention to the last year Halo Infinite trailer at E3 looking so much better than the actual gameplay, because that trailer itself, was yet another outsourced project. Now, that's a really weird thing, and we'll come on to why that could be the case in a little bit. Now, another thing is the collaboration appears to be a recurring issue. Therot sources actually cite creative disagreements as the reason behind Tim Longo and Mary Olsen leaving the project last year. Now, that really is rough, because you've got a project that is seemingly struggling on a technological level, a scope level, all of those things, to then sort of hear that, we would have guessed as well that there would have been some creative issues because Tim and Mary left, but certainly you put all these things together and it just does get more and more worrying. Now, Therot also says that engineering and marketing have been on, quote, 2 different planets, with engineering constantly asking for delays and to hold back announcements, and marketing just firing on ahead. An example of that is that the recent confirmation that Infinite's multiplayer will be free to play and support 120 FPS on the Series X, that came not even 2 weeks before the game was delayed, which certainly is a bit weird. And then if you think back to what we just covered, where one of those trailers was outsourced, you then do kind of wonder, is this another example of maybe last year marketing was just like, we're going full steam ahead in Halo, obviously, while engineering was at the same time being like, we're not ready. But then, of course, the trailer is outsourced, so it looks incredible, and fans are generally decently happy with it. So it seems like those things have been happening here. Now, there have been other rumors that 343 in terms of management is kind of like the worst of old school Microsoft, and that there's just loads of issues there. Therot didn't really get into that stuff too much with their article, but but it certainly is the type of thing that is concerning. I mean, there's a lot of stuff now sort of leaking out about this project, and I mean, certainly as somebody who loves Halo, it is very concerning indeed. Now, Throt also alleges that the in-production Halo television show has also had a major impact on Infinite's development, and often takes priority over making sure development is on the right track. Now, that seems insane to me. Now, Throt's sources seem to have said this. Of course, 343 swiftly denied that allegation, stating that the Halo Infinite and the Showtime television show are two completely different projects and did not represent a distraction, right, to each other. Now, I guess that is fair enough, and technically that would be the case. But if they don't represent a distraction, each project to the other one, I mean, is it still a situation where executives are having their time sort of eaten up by the TV show when really it's the game that would matter more? It's really hard to say there, but overall, it does seem like this is a really messy situation, and the idea of marketing plowing on ahead does, I think, make a lot of sense to me. I think people in engineering probably know the technology they've been working with, and they probably know that what came out in July, this last July, really looked quite bad. And they probably also know that ray tracing was promised as a patch feature for a reason, because they were, behind schedule. So at least if you look at the public things, the idea that marketing and engineering are on two different planets certainly does make sense. Feel bad for the engineers. They're probably being crunched into oblivion. And yeah, it's a sad situation. We've already done the meta-analysis on this, so you can check our previous videos if you want that, what it means for Microsoft's strategy. But overall, yeah, it's a sad situation. It does seem like that ever since Bungie left Halo, Halo just can't get a break. Halo 4 had a weird plotline that relied too much on the transmedia narrative stuff from the books. It had multiplayer that tried a bit too hard to be Call of Duty. Halo 5, well, it had way better multiplayer, that's for sure, but it had, a really bad campaign. How the hell did that happen? Yeah, just this modern era of Halo is just, even when there are good things, they come with bad things, and it certainly is very disappointing that Microsoft have let what should have been one of their most important intellectual properties just be in this strange state for so many years. Next up though, and of course very spicy, we do have Epic striking back because their next attack on Apple is the free Fortnite Cup, an event that awards the Tart Tycoon. It's, basically just it's the evil apple from their parody ad, and you can get it as a skin. Yep, if people are worried about Epic weaponizing their young audience, then certainly those people will not be pleased about this. They are making it literally a game, and they're actually making an evil apple a reward. Certainly is an interesting thing. They really, really are trying hard to win the marketing, the hearts and minds when it comes to this one. Of course, though, this is something, it's a far more large, nuanced issue that I think can't really be encapsulated in a few hashtags and things like that. Of course, we talked about that in a video, I believe, yesterday, so if you want to hear more about that, you can check out yesterday's video. So that's what's going on there, just another wave, really. Now, also, while there is fighting going on, some people are profiting because, and this is really quite funny, it's a bit like with Silent Hills, or, PT, on the PS4, and now iPhones with Fortnite being installed on them are actually selling on eBay. I don't know how many of those sales are actually going to be fully actualized and completed with an iPhone that has Fortnite on it reaching a customer, but that's even happening is, kind of funny. And marching from one dramatic thing over to another, 505 Games are apparently very aware of the backlash they've created with Control's newly announced Ultimate Edition. Now, announced last week, the Ultimate Edition includes the base game and all post-launch content. And while the content is actually identical to what you would have got if you just bought the base game and the Season Pass when it released, well, only owners of the Ultimate Edition will be eligible for a free upgrade to the Series X and PS5. So, yes, you could right now, get the Ultimate Edition. You'd have the exact same thing as people who bought the game and the Season Pass, just that the Ultimate Edition people get a free upgrade, and the other people who bought it earlier, don't. And that's wild, because the people who bought that game up front, they were the superfans. They were the people who cared about this game enough to buy it at full price with a Season Pass, and that they're being left behind seems really bizarre. So people are not happy, I think rightly so, and in a blog post, 505 offered a very inadequate explanation. The team apparently spent several months exploring different launch options, but for every avenue they explored, there was some form of blocker that meant that one group of players would be locked out. And it's a bit weird. I mean, the explanation, pointedly, does not explain why only Ultimate Edition owners get an upgrade, beyond simply saying they'd be unable to offer one to all players. What's going on there? Is it that like they can only do an upgrade if there's like one SKU of a product? I mean, that seems really weird. Their excuse basically boils down to, we tried, honest, this is the best we can do. And people obviously have got a hard time believing that, right? I mean, surely there are some people who would purchase a next-gen upgrade, and, they maybe would be doing that now. And surely this is a situation where Microsoft, given their push with smart delivery, where they would have wanted to help here. So, yeah, this whole thing of 505 kind of saying, like, we tried to do free upgrades, but it was kind of impossible to do it without leaving people out, it does feel disingenuous, and it seems like whatever technical limitations, I mean, if there are technical limitations, like, they shouldn't exist. I don't know. It's very, very weird. Then a bit of Fall Guys news. So, it is still sitting pretty damn strong, but there was a minor drama from Devolver Digital that happened this week, where basically a number of Argentinian players took to the internet to complain that the keys they purchased legitimately through the game's official website had unexpectedly been refunded. Now, a message sent to players read that their key belonged to a batch of keys that were exploited by scammers, and that the keys had been disabled and refunded. Now, of course, players were not really that convinced because Devolver recently raised the price of the game in that region, and they said that the initial lower price was a mistake. Now, this meant that players would seemingly had to have paid up for Devolver's pricing mistake. A bit weird. Now, Devolver, to be fair to them, they've released a statement saying that cancelling the keys was a mistake in itself, and they've offered free replacement keys to the affected people, which is a good thing. I think generally that's probably just wires crossed and just bizarre things happening. Otherwise, though, in Fall Guys land, they are putting all that brand interaction to good use. There is currently a competition going on where whoever pledges the most to special effect in the next 2 weeks gets a branded in-game skin. And as of the time of writing, it is a bidet company called Tushy who have got a bid of $420,069.69. So, yes, that's what's going on. Quite funny. Then elsewhere, the tracker site, Gamstat, actually has revealed that, or at least their estimate, is that Fall Guys has had a massive 15.6 million people on PS4, and that's because of the game's PS Plus launch promotion. Now, Rocket League, which had basically another similar thing happen, it was a big success, but it took over a year to hit 10 million, so suffice to say, they're doing pretty damn well. Then next up, SEGA and PC. So, following the success of Persona 4 Golden on Steam, SEGA have said they're going to start aggressively pursuing PC ports from now on, and this is going to include legacy content, but also SEGA told investors that they are going to be taking steps to ensure simultaneous multi-platform rollout for future first-party titles. Now, it may be on a per-title basis, but basically, this is good news for PC gamers who want to play games in the SEGA library. So that's definitely pretty sweet. It's wild that it took them this long to acknowledge that, they could have a PC audience, but it certainly is a good thing, and I imagine that with games being basically the only good thing in Sega's Q1 financials, that, they probably want to work out how they can make as much money from the games as they can, which, I mean, hey, is they're right, it is the thing they should be doing, and if they're doing that by offering their games on PC where they previously weren't, then I think that's a big win-win. And then next up, weirdness with Battletoads. This is a bizarre one. It released this week and it created one of the stranger review situations we've seen in a while. So, the reviews are mixed to a silly degree. I mean, some outlets are calling it things like obnoxious and baffling, while others are saying that it's actually a worthy successor to the original's cult stardom, which is all just a bit weird. It's like reviewers are playing different games, or maybe didn't play the whole thing, because it appears this game, it's like not even a beat 'em up the entire time. It's very weird. So it maybe doesn't bode too well that Xbox Game Studios, rebooted a cult classic and it's now so divisive, but it's probably going to be on that sort of, it's on Game Pass, I have Game Pass, may as well try it, sort of tier of game, and that's actually why The Verge called it the perfect Game Pass game. So I assume they just decided to get a little bit weird with it with that one. Anyway, there you go. That's it for today's news. Now, in terms of things, hit that sub button. One thing that helps. Also, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 has had a very strange situation. The lead writer, lead creative, just suddenly had no jobs. There's a bunch of spooky stuff seemingly going on, and it's one of the videos we put up later yesterday. So, if you haven't checked that out, be sure to check it out. Other than that, thank you for watching. And with that said, I'll see you next time.